Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to my lecture recital. Today, I would like to present 5 works by different French composers who represent various musical eras and stylistic languages, some of whose work I have collected here today for their interest in nature and birds. I will present these works chronologically from 18th century Baroque period to the 20th century. Alongside the musical points, I would also touch on some scientific aspects of birdsong in order for us to become more familiar with birdsong. My recital will conclude with pieces by Olivier Messiaen, who was not only a musician, but also an ornithologist. Are you just like me? When you hear a bird, do you wonder what bird is it? Do you admire the design of the bird with its colorful feathers and magical wings? Humans have been inspired by birds in so many ways. In addition to their ability to fly, their behavior and song have caused us wonderment. There are the symbols of the divine, freedom, and love, just to name a few. Their songs have motivated composers to write. Here, let's have a look at some well-known bird motifs. My first example here is a melody found in Mozart's journal. Beneath it was his comment, "That was beautiful." This melody appears also in Mozart's piano concerto in G major, number 17, as the opening theme in the 3rd movement, played by a flute. The next example is from Beethoven's most beloved symphony, number 6, also known as the Pastoral Symphony. The symphony is full of a composer's passion and longings for the nature, in which birds play a vital role. In the beginning of the 2nd movement, Beethoven depicts the bird calls with a flute, an oboe, and 2 clarinets. He even included the species of the birds in the score: nightingale, quail, and cuckoo. In fact, notated birdsong appeared long before Mozart and Beethoven's time. One of the earliest examples of notated birdsong is found in Musica Universalis, a book published in 1650s by Athanasius Kircher, a German Jesuit scholar who wrote 30 books on vast subjects. His massive Musica Universalis was a compendium of ancient and 17th century musical facts and theory, in which he transcribed songs of the nightingale, rooster, hen, cuckoo, and quail. Interesting, Beethoven also included nightingale, quail, and cuckoo. When we have a closer look at the bird call written by both Kircher and Beethoven, we find surprising similarities. It's probably not too hard to see that nightingale and cuckoo are the most popular and most imitated birds in Western music history. This brings us to my performance of 3 harpsichord pieces. The first piece, Le Recital en Amour, was composed by François Couperin in 1722. The Couperins were a renowned music family, with François Couperin being the greatest among the members. He was very active in court of Louis XIV. Most of his compositions carry fanciful titles, which originated in late 16th century Lutenist literature. There are 4 bird pieces in the same set. They were said to contain amorous, inside jokes, which perhaps only Couperin and his circle understood. However, the association with love and nightingale has been widely known. In this piece, I will combine the piece itself with its double, a more embellished version of the same piece, where we can hear Couperin's exquisitely decorated melodic writing, still plissé, lute-like texture, and Couperin's particular sweet and intimate lyricism. The second Baroque composer, Jean-Philippe Rameau, was best known today for his dramatic works and theoretical writing. In Le Rappel des Oiseaux, we hear birds engaging in dialogues between the hands. The Pensées ornaments mordants suggest chirping in a harmonious or a competitive way. Rameau's originality lies in his attempt to use the keyboard as a sustaining instrument with the layered chords and pedal point to enrich the sonority. Moreover, he employed daring dissonances and chromaticism as harmonic exploration. Interestingly, Rameau was introduced to the bird sound in Kircher's Musica Universalis by his mathematician friend Louis Bertrand Castel, along which specifically the hen and the nightingale. In addition to the piece presented today, Rameau also wrote a piece for the hen. Although Rameau's birds do not sing the same as Kircher's, he was undoubtedly stimulated. Unlike Couperin and Rameau, Louis-Claude Daquin did not come from a musical family. He was the best virtuoso improviser of his generation, and his abilities won him the position of royal organist. However, he did not leave many written works behind, and his existing compositions largely consist of cheerful melodies and simple harmonies. Le Coucou is an example of his taste for the single melodic unit which repeats throughout the piece. The right hand plays the quick, light figuration as an accompaniment to the cuckoo motif in the left hand, and occasionally they switch. I wonder if Daquin expected the short and lovable piece to have become one of the most played pieces in keyboard history. It's worth noting that, alongside the dances, there are character pieces devoted to the imitation of nature in some form, with birds being one of the popular themes. This was a preoccupation of the time in France, along with the idealization of the pastoral world. L'Oiseau Triste by Maurice Ravel was the second piece in the suite Miroir. It is unique for its free structure and improvisatory nature. Ravel is said to have heard the bird song when he was in the forest at Fontainebleau. The piece evokes bird lost in the oppressiveness of a very dark forest during the hottest hours of summer. When Ravel first presented the piece to his Les Apachés friends, they were perplexed by the dissonant and slow-moving piece. Pianist Ricardo Vinícius was the only member who liked the piece, and thus Ravel dedicated the piece to him, stating, "It was fun to inscribe to a pianist a piece that was not in the least bit pianistic." The title, which is contrary to the general thing of chirping, cheerful birds, carries a possible link to his poet friend Léon Paul Fac. Although the piece was described as one of the gloomiest and most depressing pieces of Ravel's youth, Ravel proudly looked back at the composition as a turning point in his stylistic evolution. The piece begins with a simple bird call. And for the arabesque bird call figures, Ravel wanted it to be played faster than written to sound more spontaneous and improvised, thus more like a bird. Next, the complement, which represents the heavy dark forest, joins in. The downward third suggests size, and the downward fifth in the bass gives further stagnancy. The sharp bird cry and the hurried outburst of falling major triad passage with a tint of dissonance illustrate the fear and agitation of birds. The familiar bird calls return after the sharp contrast. In the end, the temperate E major sonority, which sounds bright and hopeful, leads back to the darker E flat major through inharmonic D sharp bird call, leaves the listener with a sense of having waken up from the false hope back to the dark reality. Here I will play the piece for you. Before we get to the second half of the lecture, let's talk about some scientific facts about birds. There are almost 10,000 species, and almost half of them are songbirds. Birds can learn new songs throughout their lives, and they adapt to other species, environment, and climate. Singing is a way to demonstrate abilities to declare territory, to attract potential mates, and to communicate with other birds. Most songs come from males, but females sing too. The song is produced by the syrinx. Some songbirds can control independently each side of the syrinx, which allows them to produce two unrelated pitches at once. Their singing capabilities are beyond all other creatures on Earth. Composers wrote bird song mostly based on the general impression of bird movements, swift, light, and high, and bird song trill-like or the simple, distinctive call like the cuckoo's. In reality, bird vocalization is much more complex. It is highly varied in frequency, timbre, intonation, and meaning. It requires a lot of knowledge and experience to be able to identify bird song. While field guides usually translate bird song into human speech, using verbal description and onomatopoeia, musicians use notations to record bird song. However, music notation does not record the variations in timbre and fluctuations in pitch. Therefore, bird song imitations found in the context of human music can sound unnatural to some ears. If we keep the limitation of musical notation in mind, we will realize the approximation is the closest we can ever get to bird song. There is, though, a composer who transcribed the bird song and used it as the genesis of his compositions. Messiaen admired nature as the source and origin of art. He always had a passion for birds, and he benefited from the knowledge of several professional ornithologists. Messiaen took what his teacher Paul Dukas said to heart. Listen to the birds, they're great masters. According to Messiaen, birds are the greatest musicians on our planet. Messiaen could recognize by ear the bird song of 50 species in France, and he collected bird songs systematically throughout Europe and overseas. His collections make two large volumes in Messiaen's traité de rythme, de couleur et d'ornithologie, with European birds in one volume and foreign birds in the other. There are also over 200 notebooks now deposited at the National Library of France. Among all the bird call emissions, Messiaen deemed most important the free song that are simply provoked by the beauties of nature and no other purposes. Messiaen said the birds sing, for example, a dawn chorus because the color astonished and inspires them. Messiaen suspected that Couperin never heard a nightingale, and he rightfully claimed to be the only composer who is engaged directly in ornithology. Having realized the deficiency of musical notation when it comes to bird song transcription, I would like to talk about a device for us to not just hear, but also read the bird song. The spectrograms are computer-generated graphs that show the basic shape of an audio wave and how its frequency changes over time. The spectrograms are like fingerprints of sound, as they provide time-frequency portrait of musical sound. The spectrogram is helpful in analyzing changes in tone quality as determined by overtones, particularly the harmonics that human ears cannot perceive. Reading spectrograms is similar to reading music. with lower pitch sounds appear lower on the graph and higher pitch above them. The difference is sounds are displayed as continuous lines instead of notes, and the brightness of color reflects the loudness of sound. Here are the 7 basic tone qualities of birdsong and how they look on the spectrograms. Note that there is not only musical birdsong, but also complex tones and noisy quality. As we're more familiar with the whistle, hooty, and noisy sound like that of magpie, ga, ga, ga. Let's have a listen to other sounds. First, the ticking sound of yellow rail. Next is the trill call that is similar to an electric buzzer from Carolina ring. The buzzy sound happens when a whistle rises and falls very rapidly in pitch. It's shown as wriggly lines on spectrograms. Next, we will hear a nasal tone quality that reminds us of an oboe. Many bird songs are actually combinations of multiple simultaneous whistles on different pitches called partials, which the human brain typically perceives as one single sound. On spectrograms, we see stacks of horizontal lines. Having learned the different tone qualities of birds, let's hear the bird song with the spectrograms and imagine how you would transcribe the sound. Each call will be played 3 times because they're fast, and underneath the spectrograms are my attempts in transcription. For the first excerpt, you'll see 2 versions of transcription done by different people in order to demonstrate the possible discrepancies in individual perception. I invite you to pay attention to not just the musical sound, but also the other tone quality. And here is the wood thrush. And next is song sparrow. After listening to the excerpt, I believe you have an idea of how the transcription will be like. I would like then to talk about the challenges and difficulties during the transcription. Difficulty in hearing and dictating due to fast speed, softness, and high register. Birdsong is irregular in rhythm and pulse. Birdsong does not conform to any musical scales. There are microtones that do not fit into our well-tempered 12-tone system. Birds' pitches can be altered any time. The wobbling, whistle-like sliding tone is hard to transcribe. Complex timbre, change timbre of notes continuously while singing. There could be melody-like sound as well as other sounds as we just heard. Some birdsong is rich in harmonics that humans cannot perceive. Human musical pitches can be slightly varied due to the build of the instrument, such as attack, decay, air control, vibrato, but in essence, pitch steady, versus birdsong, which is frequency modulated. Lastly, it's hard to differentiate when multiple birds sing at the same time as they do in a habitat. Messiaen did not explain in details his procedure or method of transcribing bird song. However, he did point out the basic elements in regards to his bird songs are transcription, transformation, and interpretation. Now, first step, transcription wasn't always easy for Messiaen. He said, at first, I didn't quite know what I was doing. My notations were off. I couldn't tell one from another. I couldn't differentiate. Then I studied with some ornithologists on guided walk. I said, that's it. Once I grabbed it, I knew it for life. Indeed, it took an extremely experienced ear and extraordinary transcription skills to notate bird song, even with the help of a recorder, which Messiaen never really relied on. He stated that the notation with the help of a tape recorder is more exact. However, the ones that were taken directly from nature are more artistic. As for the transcription method, he said, I use a simple system to notate my bird song. I simply write on music paper with a pencil. I write what I heard, a sort of rapid musical dictation. It is enormously demanding on the ears at first, also my memory skills. Birds are very quick. I write the first stanza as he sings the second as he sings the third, and so on. Second step, transformation. Messiaen said he had no choice but to transpose the bird song for the human ear. Although he strives to stay truthful all the time, the modification he had to make include slowing down the tempo, lowering the register, and enlarging the intervals proportionally to eliminate microtones, and to give the bird song a proper timbre. First step, interpretation. Messiaen said, I'm neither a photographer nor a fan of the tape recorder. I write. What I write is the bird, as heard by me. It's not the absolute bird as such. It is all the same a transposition. Just like a landscape painter doesn't photograph a landscape, he renders his impression of that landscape. I think this remark explains very well that Messiaen's bird song, as carefully transcribed and authentic as it is also authentically interpreted by Messiaen using his own compositional techniques and languages. Messiaen's harmony plays a major role in the interpretation of bird song. Unlike the traditional sense of harmonizing, it colors the melodic lines. He said, in order to translate these timbres, harmonic combinations are absolutely needed. Messiaen's harmonies are closely associated with colors and moods because he could see colors when he heard or read music due to his synesthesia. Messiaen always associates his chords and modes with colors. Messiaen was accustomed to write major works. Messiaen devoted 4 piano collections into bird song, which spanned his entire career. Devant Regarde sur l'enfant Jésus, Quatre oiseaux, Forfait de jardin, and Petit esquisse d'oiseau. We can see that the previous 3 works are much more substantial than the last one. After the completion of the opera Saint François d'Assise, which took 8 years to complete, and the organ works Livre du Saint-Sacrement, written in 1984. Messiaen was exhausted and fell black in 1985 and 86. His wife Yvonne Loyot coaxed Messiaen to compose for her favorite bird, European robin, which hadn't yet received a major role in his work. The smaller scale works between 1985 to 87 represented a kind of compositional rehabilitation for Messiaen, in which he gradually gained his confidence. For the 6 short sketches in Petit esquisse, Messiaen chose the birds that were especially close to his heart, like old friends who he knew very well, blackbird, song thrush, and skylark, to accompany European robin. The title sketches may imply an unfinished, undefined quality, which reflects Messiaen's self-doubt about himself and his work. However, in retrospect, Messiaen was proud of this work. The work is characterized by its brevity and simplicity, though, as Sylvain Loriot attests, the sketches, which are exquisitely ethereal and beautiful, are very difficult to learn. The display of pure bird song and absence of sounds and colors of habitat depiction result in an absence of middle and lower register sounds. According to Messiaen, these pieces are very similar through their harmonic style, where complex sonorities evolve with changing colors, and yet very different, that each bird has its own aesthetic, with the melody and rhythmic movement differing from one piece to another. What is more, he states, one can say that the 3 European robin pieces are one piece split into 3 parts. Before we take a closer into the lead singer in Petite Exquise, the European robin, let us have a quick look at the 2 most famous birds in music history, the nightingale and the cuckoo, for comparison. The first example is by Clément Yencken, a famous French composer of popular chansons of the Renaissance. In his 4-part song, Le Chant des Oiseaux, we can see that he used repeated notes, simple rhythmic pattern, with onomatopoeic words to imitate the birds. In his later 4-part song, Va au signe, amoureuse message, there is no clear use of bird song. The lyrics, though, demonstrate very well what nightingale was symbolized for. Chopin and Beethoven used major second intervals such as in mordents and trills to represent nightingale. Stravinsky used soprano and flute to interpret the bird with relatively varied materials including descending chromatic scales and upward-downward leaps. In Messiaen's Traité, the nightingale covers 26 pages. Messiaen described the bird and its song in details with musical examples and excerpts. According to Messiaen, nightingale is a symbol of love, music, and lyricism, which sings bravely for love. This excerpt shows acciaccatura, fast repeated notes, leaps, and alternating major sevenths, and Messiaen's typical inexact doubling writing. Next, for contrast, I would like to show you Messiaen's cuckoo. The bird is well known for its call because it is so simple and straightforward. One can never miss the downward major triad, so characteristic of the bird. According to Messiaen, the cuckoo is the messenger of spring. Its song is of extreme simplicity. However, Messiaen not only recorded the bird's timbre, similar to French horn, but also the bird's verified call when it is under stress. European robin, an official national bird of the United Kingdom, is a common songbird throughout Europe. According to the ornithologist, the European robin is a small bird with big voice, who sings throughout the year, and even into the night due to the artificial lighting. The song is described as high-pitched, flute-like, whistling, and warbling. It is a series of chirp phrases with pauses between verses. The song itself often consists of a number of high-pitched, drawn-out notes which quickly descend in pitch but increase in speed. The phrases are rarely repeated and are of great contrast in speed and dynamics. Let's just hear it. In the beginning of each robin piece, Messiaen employed his chord of transpose inversions to give colors. The theme de chord appears multiple times in various lengths, some with the final chord held and extended into the bird song section. The melody line is always doubled with different intervals, and common conclusions of the phrase include porrectus flexus, climacus, and clevis in iambic rhythm, and torculus, always slowing down at the end. The two main themes are soft high-pitched trills and fast-descending phrases like waterfall or pearl-like sound, rapid, soft, almost like glissando. We notice also the change of tempo and contrasting dynamics. Now I will play the entire suite for you. Finally, I would like to conclude with my personal thoughts. These pictures, though incomplete, we can still tell what the entity is. My point is, whether composers write imaginative or simple bird song, the message is conveyed, and the beauty is undeniable. Next is the question of style. One can debate and judge which bird picture is better based on his own aesthetic views and personal taste. That's exactly the most amazing thing about art. There's no right or wrong. The great rationalist Immanuel Kant said, "It must be nature or be mistaken by us for nature to enable us to take an immediate interest in the beautiful as such." Finally, I would like to end today's lecture with Meixiang's urging, "Go into nature. It is the source and origin of art." Before we end the live stream today, I would like to express my gratitude to my supervisor, Professor Patricia Tao, and my committee, especially Professor Mariam Moshaver, for their insights and support. I would also like to thank the staff, Ross, Pat, and Calvin, for their hard work. Many of you know that I had been on long medical leaves. I want to say that without my parents, Rolf, and the doctors and counselors, I wouldn't be standing here today. Finally, I thank you sincerely for your attention, and I wish you a wonderful evening.